Hello, my name is Tim Bernard and this is Beyond the Headlines, where we take a much different look at what is going on around us in the world, how it's integrated, how it plays out, from everything from prophecy, but primarily just what is actually happening, because I know how people love to play with prophecy. These are just things that are going on around us. I can only report on a small amount, and this is just another venue to reach people through television. And I also post this on YouTube. But at Big Sky Free Press, there's my website. I put up anywhere from 50 to 70 articles probably a week. On that site, there's about that many on my religious website. So I'm putting up 100 articles a week on different material, plus different YouTube videos and stuff. There's hundreds of hours of free videos and links from other people's stuff, so there's a wealth of information there. We're going to do a lot of stuff on the political shenanigans that are going on, and also on Davos, which recently ended, the World Economic Forum, which most of the mainstream news just barely covered, if at all. But see, they're paid handsomely. 7 figures, 7 or maybe even 8 figures, to just read their scripts. I'm paid nothing. It actually costs me money to try and to wake people up, but I can sleep at night because I know what is coming, and I know I tried to do something. Now, the dead horse may be falling. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in New Hampshire. The mainstream media has done everything to prop this gal up on both sides of the aisle, because, you see, they're really just two sides of one coin. And what they like about their horses is that they're bought off. And this is Hillary, why she's our State Department Secretary of State, and she's having some fun over there in Africa. Everyone's laughing and singing, and Lord only knows the kind of fun she'll have if she can have a big time party on that 747, because that's what she really wants. Of course, most people would be in jail for what the Clintons have done. Most people don't even know what the Clintons have done, even to destroy our economy. They don't know what Glass-Steagall is, and all the shenanigans that Billy Boy pulled in the late 90s with the release of the derivatives and that whole market upon us. And with the voting, just as a little bit of history, back in 2008, Obama, while he was fresh, he was one of their boys. They really wanted it to be Hillary Obama, Obama being the closer, and he may still be. But Hillary was actually ahead Obama, I'm sorry, was ahead in New Hampshire, but Hillary wound up winning. And we were primarily looking at it because they shafted Ron Paul quite a bit there, and I went over this a ton back at the time, showed the documents where they had tampered even with the paper ballots, but the electronic ballots is where it's very easy to come up with whatever number you want. As Stalin said, it's not who votes, it's who counts the votes. And I'm hoping and praying that we'll have good representatives elected this fall, and quite frankly that we'll have an election. We're going to play a clip here pretty soon, but it's just a continuation. Done stories on this. Bush back in 2007, so like 9 years ago, he passed a law, and it was just a continuation of stuff from even before that. It's called PD 51, Presidential Directive 51. And what it stated was any problem anywhere in the world that caused a big enough disruption in economics or health or anything that, of course, they deemed this is too big of a deal, they can suspend the Constitution. And that's a very real possibility. They floated that idea in 2004 and 2008, even though there was nothing going on. So it will be interesting to see if it looks like there will be a Republican maybe going to win. And they own most of the Republicans. I don't believe they own Donald Trump. And Cruz tries to play like he's the outsider, but his wife is the vice president for Goldman Sachs. So I really have a hard time believing that he will do anything. But anyway, let's hear a Democratic senator. And this is a recently passed bill in the last week. And it was passed, so it was passed by the Republicans, giving the Democrat, or whoever the next president is, this power. Here he is in his own words.
Is working. Madam President, today I wanted to come down to the floor to speak very briefly about a resolution that the majority leader introduced, I believe, earlier today. This is an authorization for military force resolution that apparently purports to give the president legal authority to conduct military operations against ISIS. Before we break for the weekend, Madam President, I thought it was important to come to the floor to explain why, very briefly, to my colleagues, to explain what this resolution really is. This resolution is a total rewrite of the War Powers Clause of the United States Constitution. Let's be clear about that. It is essentially a declaration of international martial law, a sweeping transfer of military power to the president that will allow him or her to send U.S. troops almost anywhere in the world for almost any reason with absolutely no limitations.
And only a few people voted against that. And that's why most of the people who are in office, virtually every congressman, should be thrown out. But we are the resistance, the V from the Vietnam War for peace. Also, the partisans in France would mark a V in public places to let the occupiers and the Vichy government know that they knew what was going on. And it even goes back farther than that. This is a book that's free online, written by their side, these globalists. The first global revolution. I mean, they care so little about people, they just, it's out there in plain view. And we're coming to you from Global Region 1, FEMA District 10. I mean, look this up. I've got a link, and it links to what's going on. I mean, this isn't like maybe. And we're going to get into even colder stuff. This is just one thing from Davos. There's a bunch more coming in the economic section, which is near the end of the show. But this is the Secretary General of the United Nations. Climate change undermines development gains. You know, it's a bunch of baloney. And in that book that was written 40 years ago, it said that they would use climate as an issue. And climate change is what the history of climate is. It's always been changing. And even more than that, everything is suppressed. I'm not for coal, but we need to use that as a vehicle. Since we have it, it's developed and it's here as a vehicle. We need to unshackle everything. And I'm against the Keystone Pipeline. We need to start spending money and really develop it. But Al Gore's not going to do it. Did you know that Al Gore's family money is Occidental Petroleum down in, not Venezuela, but Colombia? I mean, it's just insane what goes on here. And here we are. I mean, I look at these pictures and I just go, well, This is the Arctic. A satellite picture from '95, so 20 years ago. The same day, 20 years later, look at how much the snow has increased. It changes, it ebbs and it flows. It's been on a declining trajectory for millennia, since the last ice age. But to say that we're causing it, and then that what they propose is going to fix it, is ridiculous. They have a hard time predicting weather that's a week out. And you're telling me they know? Plus, this is all going to be over. We don't have 50 years. Look at their own writings and their documents, 2030 from the UN. You can look up a little YouTube video, 2045. I've played that before. I mean, we don't have another 50, 100 years. Not from global warming. Even if it is real, that's fine. We'll deal with it. But right now, we need to deal with the people that have the gun pointed at our heads. Stop worrying about the little cut you have on your finger and start dealing with the hardcore issues of what's going on, especially you leaders. Or else get out of the way and let other people in. And here's prophecy right here. The Vatican hanging United Nations, a pagan outfit. I showed you some of that treaty last week. Mother Earth, Gaia. Come on. And I'm probably more of an environmentalist than most people because I've spent a large part of my life camping and hiking and out in the woods, backpacking. I love the outdoors. Alaska. But here's another. This is that treaty. Oh, it was a success, but that was the easy part. You better wake up and find out what's going on about this and what they're really doing. Just follow the money. Follow the money. And it won't be long before they're doing their cremation of care again. You'd think people would get excited about this. They do this every summer. It's called Bohemian Grove. It's one of my most popular links on my websites. Where they do a mock sacrifice of a child every summer. Every Republican president in the 20th century has been there. Some of the Democrats, a lot of our leaders in all walks of life have been there. Check it out. It's simply unbelievable. But this is what we should expect. This is right out of the Old Testament. There's an owl, Molech, and here's some guys dressed up in, that's the altar where they do the sacrifice. And this is the lake where they bring the child in effigy. And Lord only knows what goes on there. And they do other stuff. And this is mainstream news. It's been all over the place. People wrote about it in their memoirs. World leaders have. Nixon, Helmut Schmidt, to name but a few. Here's some Satanists scheduled to offer a prayer at the city council meeting. I believe this was Phoenix. And they finally decided they're going to give them a silent period, was the last. As this keeps unfolding, though, it's only going to become more and more clear as to what is going on. This is the great battle between light and darkness. And it's just everywhere. You need to wake up. You need to get involved. Get yourself educated and wake someone else up. At the very least, you can tell them about this show or tell them about these few things. Bohemian Grove, tell them about that if they ask them if they know about it. And there's still people doing good stuff because I can do all things through Christ. And so they haven't been able to shut everything down yet. But Christianity is under attack. Especially in our country and around the world. It's the most persecuted religion in the world now. And we're not persecuting other people. There might be some false Christians, some fakes who are doing it. But, and the apostasy within the church and the Christian community is growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, I played that one thing of all the groups that support Planned Parenthood, all the Christian groups, Catholic groups. You cannot be a Catholic and be for abortion, for the killing of children. That's all there is to it. And here's a Salesian Missions promotion of abortifacient contraception, masturbation, and condoms. Exactly what we were told we would see in these days. Here they are in Germany being taught changing the word from God to Allah. And how true this woman was, this is a mayor, it was a female mayor even, over there in Germany. He said women should prepare for mass rapes. And here's just one article that we were able to come across. Oh, gang rape, the most natural thing in the world. I mean, and the Swedish police, it was found out that they have a little code name for crimes involving refugees. It's called 291. So that way it doesn't seem like, it's just a way to cover things up. And this is coming down from up on high. But the police are complicit. I mean, it's just like the stuff that's gone on in wars and stuff. And of course, we have a little 10-year-old boy brutally raped by an Iraqi migrant at a pool in Vienna. We have a Swedish woman raped by a refugee, refuses to report it because she feels sorry for him. And here's a woman in Cologne, is called a racist and harassed after identifying her attackers. And an outrage in Denmark as a 17-year-old girl faces a fine for using pepper spray against her sexual attacker. We're entering into La La Land. And then we have the JV team, ISIS. They're destroying a 1,400-year-old Christian monastery. And we funded them. People should be going to jail for the war crimes committed, both under the Bushes and the Clintons. And to show you how things are changing in the world, Moscow gives us hope, says the Syrian Catholic Patriarch, because we're doing nothing over there. We caused the problem, and we're not even fixing it. But you see, remember, we stopped them from going in full bore a few years ago. And so they just doubled down, created ISIS, and funded them. I mean, they're blowing money. It came out, they spent like $400 or $500 million. And what did we get for that? Oh, we got 4 or 5 fighters. We've shown you stuff of where they're dropping munitions on ISIS strongholds. I mean, ISIS makes videos of them opening these parachuted in munitions from us. I mean, holy mackerel. Obama spoke just a couple days ago at a mosque where the guy condoned suicide bombings. Hey, and Obama goes, yeah, and Muslims have always been a part of our country. Baloney. The first mosque wasn't here until 1929. But this is the problem. And here's another thing. A rally for the family in Rome where they're trying to shove the homosexual agenda down their throat. And we're going to be judged harshly. There's no one talking about that. You never hear that from, or rarely, depending on what pulpit, how we're going to be judged for our decadence. and are being judged, and we're in the period of this judgment that's coming on, and we'll get to that in just a second. But this is no civil unions even, let alone the baloney that they're doing. This is a close-up in that big rally. And what are they doing over here? Oh, California, we need an all-gender bathroom. And there was a UN report. Oh, there is no definition of the family. Baloney. A family is a man and a woman married, creating children, if God blesses them. That's a family. That's how it's always been upon the earth since the very beginning. Oh, and there's another interesting story in England. The school children are forced to define their gender by choosing from 23 options. This is social engineering. Social engineering. We need to be warning. I mean, I feel sorry for people who are leaders, especially religious leaders who never talk about this stuff. But good is called evil, and evil is called good. Planned Parenthood sues the activist who made the secret videotapes. But an interesting twist on this is that now the court decided that the video maker is going to have to go to trial. They pressed charges against the guy who made the video, showing, how dare you show us committing a crime? These are the times that we're living in. So we need to keep this fellow in our prayer. All those who are fighting the good fight. And of course the newspaper trying to make him out to me as if he did something false. He's got all of his video is out there, and you can see it. They're clearly selling the baby parts. I mean, that's what they're doing. But hey, Planned Parenthood is a good organization founded by a eugenicist. I showed her stuff many times, Margaret Sanger. She used to speak at Ku Klux Klan rallies. She was one of their favorite people. We need to get rid of the weeds. Oh, weeds? Those are black people and brown people. Now, of course, the New York Times and the Post, the New York Times just said hundreds of people came out because it was very inclement weather. Remember the big storm that came up right at the March for Life. But it held off long enough that they were able to get it in just before. And there were thousands of people at this march again. And we are the majority. But the minority, the very few who actually run this place, they are eugenicists. And that's why we have Planned Parenthood. That's why people are dying. And there will be hell to pay. There will be blood on many people's hands. Not just the people who are doing it, but the people who are silent, as we were warned hundreds of years ago, and thousands of years ago, specifically by Jesus. How I wish you were hot or cold, but since you are lukewarm, I spit you out of my mouth. This is just one. Just listen to the Republican debate tonight, because this is Saturday, February 6th, that I'm recording this, and they were talking about exceptions, and I would urge you to take a look at a YouTube video of some of the children who are the children of rape. You can survive 9 months and give the child away for adoption if that's what you want to do. Don't make another wrong out of clearly a wrong. And it's literally written in stone what their plan is. The Georgia Guidestones. Then the very first thing that they want to do is to maintain a population on the earth of under 500 million. I've personally been there. This isn't a Hollywood prop. This exists right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Look it up. Still no takers on Disputa. This is prophecy. This is what is coming. There's a huge war on within the church to weaken the Eucharist and its true meaning as the real presence of Christ that he set up. His apostles say it. Paul says it. The apostles' protégés say it in writings. We have extant writings of it. But if someone from the other side who doesn't believe it would like to have a discussion, get a hold of me. We are living in the time of the book of Revelation, something I mentioned earlier. Alpha and Omega is the way to open the book. That's the key. And this is right out of the 6th and 7th chapter. God has sent the 4 angels to the corners of the earth. And he said, okay, now before we hurt the earth, we need to mark our people. And that formally started in 1999. That's when this priest got this mark. And his name is Father Zudak. And you and I aren't going to get marks, but the reason we're only marked in our forehead is because we have to believe in the system. They can take the mark in their forehead or their hand, because while many people won't believe in the beast system, they will not have enough faith in God to play out whatever his will is for them, and so they will take the mark just so they can buy and sell. And you never hear people saying, hey, you should not be watching television. Your children should not watch television unsupervised. And that's just the way it is. I mean, the devil owns the airwaves. I'm on there trying to combat him, and as you know, we don't have any commercials. But if the show isn't bad, and they put stuff in the shows, and I've done tons of reports on that, where the government and the military put plots and will pay programs money to put plots within their shows. That's what they call propaganda, which is exactly what Eisenhower warned us about. I have permanent links to his military-industrial complex speech, his farewell address to the nation, where he lays it out. And about a couple paragraphs later, there's a couple lines where it says, and we need to also beware of a scientific technological elite. And how are these people controlled? Money. And why did he know it? Because that's who he worked for his whole life. That's how he became the leader of the Allied forces in World War II and a 2-term president. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And they're getting ready for the collapse. We're going to get into that shortly because it's literally unfolding now. I mean, if you can't see it, well, I guess you're believing what the government has to say. Like they just came out, oh, things seem to be getting a little worse, but unemployment went down. It's such a joke. Such a complete joke. But hey, if you're going to tell a lie like Goebbels said, tell a big one and just tell it often. You know, that's all they do. And it'll be interesting to see if the Supreme Court comes after Drudge and hyperlinks. It looks like the EU, we have an article about the EU going after hyperlinks now, the EU Supreme Court over there. So we'll see how this plays out, because they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna shut this down in the end. How long we can keep it going? Net neutrality, real net neutrality. And Obama is not on our side. I'm sorry if you think he is. Coming of age, the military micro-drone. We do stories on this all the time on a very regular basis as they come up, with drones as small as like an insect. a small insect, not a big insect, a small, like a mosquito type insect. The erosion of a self-employed independent middle class was an important precondition for the collapse of Rome and the French Revolution. And also in the French Revolution, the king did not listen to God. He was warned and he was told what to do, and he refused to do it. And eventually, well, they cut off his grandson's head. But now people are starting to get a little excited over in Europe against what's being shoved down their throats. And it's going on over here. Surging anti-mass migration party should be monitored by the government. It says surging anti-mass migration party should be monitored by the government. And it's like, no, the people who are, first of all, we need to, I don't have a problem with some immigration. It needs to be controlled and monitored. And we've had to stop immigration before. During the Depression, I mean, they're coming in, and we'll get into it in a little while, how they're taking over tech jobs too and everything. I mean, there's tons of them. We better wake up because this is a war. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's problem, solution, reaction. They caused the problem that started the exodus out of the Middle East. And it's getting the desired reaction over in Europe, which is to take them down. And this is another protest. I mean, come on. And here's one. Swedish sniper training for refugees. I mean, it's not, let's bring them in and then we'll train them even, in case they don't know. And I've done pictures of how a bunch of the jihadis, after getting beat down there in Syria, just shaved their beards and blended in and moved north with the crowd. Oh, don't worry about it. See, and then they're sending them to small areas. We've done reports on no-go areas, not only in Europe, but in America. There are places where they control. There's a town now in Michigan, I think it's Dearborn, that might be going under Sharia law. It just started in January. Done reports on that. This is where a town I used to live in Missoula. And they're bringing them in there. And here's some tech workers are defiant as GOP lawmakers push to expand the foreign labor programs. And, you know, they say we don't have enough, but tell that to the guys from Disney who had to train their replacements, and then they got pink slips. The stores are ransacked across the East Coast from that storm as citizens stockpile chemically laced foods that are far more dangerous than any blizzard, especially that. I've been through a lot of blizzards. I grew up in Minnesota, where they're a very common occurrence. And but the food that we've had, the GMO food, and that's another reason they're excited about Russia, because Russia's trying to keep GMO crops and food out of Russia, and they want to be an organic country. Of course, not here. Don't worry. Any poison is a good poison. Oh, and including the stuff we put in our water. Done that stuff on lead. Well, this is a bag of what they're actually putting in. I mean, I've got a whole website and stuff devoted to that. I bring it up every time because it's just so unbelievable. If you have toothpaste, this is it. There's a warning on the back that any child under 6 who eats more of the toothpaste than is used in brushing, you need to call the poison control system. So you have to ask yourself how much damage is done by just as much as you take while you're brushing your teeth. I mean, but this is what they wrote about openly in a book. Diet injections and injunctions will combine from a very early age to produce the sort of character and the sort of beliefs that the authorities consider desirable. And any serious criticism of the powers that will become psychologically impossible. I mean, this is a book that not someone like me wrote. They did. If you want to hear another guy, Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, just type in Huxley speech at Berkeley, and you'll hear him say, you know, that nobody will do it. I mean, in his own words, this is what we're going to do to you. There's more and more evidence coming out that this is not a natural event. Down in Brazil, the Zika virus and stuff, it just happens to be where the Gates released some genetically modified mosquitoes. Don't worry about it. Bill's got it under control. Hey, Bill couldn't even figure out MS-DOS. That was a joke. They had to buy the program for $50,000. I mean, and there was a lawsuit about that in the early 90s. So you can look all that up if you don't believe me. But yeah, no, this is like I said, and remember, PD 51. Like we started the story off with. They'll declare martial law and they'll have forced vaccinations. That's what they want. Remember, Bill, you can look him up at a TED conference and talking about genetically modifying mosquitoes to give you vaccines. But the real players, because Bill isn't the richest man in the world, never has been. The richest families in the world count their money in trillions. That's 1,000 billions is a trillion. And Obama, he just keeps rolling on, just rolling on with his lies. I don't think I'm going to have time to play the clip because I'd like to get into some more stuff on the economic news. But this is serious. There is a serious move towards getting rid of cash. And if anything happens once we have just electronic cash, think of what's going to happen. If we had an EMP blast or a solar flare came out, which we're due for, I mean, any day we could get hit by a solar flare that would literally knock it all out. And it'd be such a nightmare just to be without power. But so you want to fight this, but this is what's going to happen. This is part of the signs of the time. The cashless society, the mark of the beast, is a part of the cashless society. It doesn't come in one fell swoop. It's just little by little. Oh, we're just giving up a little of this and a little of that. Oh, and these guys caught the government fixing one of their reports. You can see before, this is the last big recession we had, and here it is dropping dramatically, and then just a couple hours later, oops, I guess not. It's not really going down. It really went up just a little bit. So this is just, I mean, there's a great shadow stats. There's tons of people from links on my website that you can go to. Other people who do a lot of in-depth research if you want to know more about it. But if you believe the baloney that they're pushing, hey, the Titanic is unsinkable. And a lot of people couldn't handle it. Instead of getting on the lifeboats, they went down into their state cabins and they just drowned. Or they listened to the band play. At the very least, they should have been praying because there was a very good chance that you were going to meet your maker. And if you died, you did. But, you know, and remember what God said. This is not only in Scripture, but also to Catherine of Siena. He made it even more plain. It's a story about Lazarus and the poor man is from the Gospels. But to Catherine of Siena, he just came out and said, listen, here's how it is. If you do not think about me in your life, for my part, I will forget about you after you're dead. Free will is very, very real. And we did this story is a thing from last time, just showing this collapse. Because one of the canaries in the coal mine that you can look at is shipping. Because obviously if people aren't making things, if they are making things, they're shipping them or doing something. But this is the collapse in shipping. We told you last time, so this is just 2 weeks ago, it was at 394, which was lower than the last recession. And the last number I had, now just a day or so ago, was it sunk to 303. It's now 50% lower than the lowest number ever recorded in this. So these are not good signs. But it'll take a little while for this to filter through, and in different areas things will be okay. But I guarantee you, the real unemployment rate is not under 5%. This is Caterpillar sales. So you can see what they've been doing. Now this is a story that actually has some basis around here, where what this is showing here is residential average prices up in Vancouver, where it's like 1.8 million or something like that. Because what's happening is a lot of Chinese people are realizing that the economy is collapsing, and so they want to have cash stashed in other parts of the world where they might, be able to save some of the value. And how do they get the money out? Well, bakshish, they pay it. And it's the same thing I've heard is happening in Seattle, in the Seattle area, and Mercer Island. People, they're paying cash for homes because they can't get loans or anything. But they pay millions of dollars for a home, sometimes even more than the asking price. These are just more signs of the times. And now, these are more quotes from Davos. A degree of volatility is okay. The market sorts things out eventually. Well, yeah, eventually, but all the markets are rigged. What was the Chinese are buying? I don't have a note. They're buying one of the markets. I don't know if it's the Chicago market or something. Remember, Germany already bought the stock market. So, I mean, we're just up for sale here. And this gal's under investigation for some corruption, but more than likely she'll get out of it. But, and I remember we had this guy who was allowed to come into our church and speak and said, "Oh, there's no global monetary system." Well, what does this say? Oh, the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank. Maybe there is. I mean, we have their own books talking about it. I've done plenty of stuff about that Tragedy and Hope book, which is just one. China is paying more attention to the quality, not the quantity, of economic growth. I mean, I've done stuff where they built this high rise and they blew it up. This was like just in November. So it was never occupied, they just blew it up. And we'll start all over again. And of course that happened here in Seattle, where they built a building and they found out there were some structural deficiencies and they had to tear it down piece by piece. I mean, that was taken down for a different reason. But it's just, and the Chinese are getting ready though for the collapse, where we haven't prepared at all. They're getting prepared. They've set up a competing monetary system. And of course, because what's going to happen, they're a part of this global system that's being set up. But there's no honor among thieves. And there will come a time when they double cross the money changers and take over. But they'll do it when they feel it's best for them. Our current economic model is inequality by design. Okay. Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, and You know, and they talk about the 1%, but that's not the real number. Is a fraction of 1%. I mean, they wrote a book, a protege of Kissinger. Oh, and for those of you who say, well, Kissinger's a Republican, we've done stuff where Obama in his foreign policy, his guy over in Europe said, yeah, I get my daily briefing from Henry Kissinger and Brent Scowcroft and a couple other guys. He listed the chain of command down from Henry Kissinger. So Obama is a part of the same crowd. So that's why he got a second term. And anyway. Now this Joseph Stiglitz, he's an interesting fellow. He got let go from the World Bank like around 2001. And that just happened to be when some papers were released to Greg Palast, who's sort of an independent reporter he works some for the BBC, which is a paid off area, but they have to throw in some real stuff to keep some people watching. And he writes books and stuff, and he's exposed a lot of the corruption, especially at the top. And anyway, he was sent these papers from the World Bank, which they didn't deny, which talked about bringing down the West, Western Europe, and America. And they're getting pretty close to pulling the pin, as they said. The monopoly of the conduct of war could soon be taken out of the hands of humans. Well, they'll pretend like it's taken out of the hands of humans. So that's what they want to do. They want to create so much chaos that people, they're going to say, oh, we just can't take care of ourselves. We have this Watson or some other computer, AI. But that was a field that I studied. I'm not intimidated by it at all. And there'll be the man behind, or in this case, the families behind the machine that will run it. It won't be, because if it was truly intelligent and read everything in existence, it would read the most popular book in the world, which is the Bible, and then it would do research on what God said as being the creator, and he would come to the same conclusion that anyone who seriously studies our Lord, because it's like our Lord said, if you search for me, you will find me. And so if we make a truly intelligent program, it will be able to deduce through logic and reality that God is real. He did exactly what he said. He created the world. And a sheer example, see what's getting ready to happen is God's about to lay down his cards, and he's got the unbeatable hand, the royal flush. And he's marked every cell in our body with a cross. That's what that is up there. Those are just standard pictures. I didn't draw those drawings, and those are a couple of electron micrographs of laminate. You can also look up a YouTube video called DNA, the Divine Molecule, where I give a brief talk, and I also wrote a couple-page paper. Very short, very direct, on DNA. But they're going to want to put a chip in you. I mean, that's all they talk about, because they want to interface and get and literally control everything you do. I mean, there's a prophecy about that at the turn of the century, everything will be controlled. And that's what you can just see it rolling out. That's all they talk about. And they're trying to make it be this good thing. Oh, you'll be all intelligent. Baloney. Turn everything off. Get down on your knees and pray, which is a conversation to your Creator, the most holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Because it's only through them that we can lessen what is happening. This is the great battle between light and darkness. And here's this is just more of, articles on what they want to do in the interface with us. And here they are at Davos. There are no legal protections from having your mind involuntarily read. I mean, I've done things where these guys said that, oh, pretty soon we'll be able to make a chip that's like a black box that can just record everything you do and think. These guys are flipped out. And they've got way too much power. Way too much power. And this is a building that just magically fell down on 9/11. Nothing hit it. That was Building 7. 47 stories, over 500 feet tall. People who have really put their livelihood on the line. Over 2,500 now, architects and engineers. You can go to their website. There's tons of information there. Tons of people. A false left-right paradigm. False flag operations have worked for thousands of years. Nothing's changed. You better take a look outside the frying pan. I thought I'd save this now. These were 22 signs of the economic collapse that's coming from, this was an article on my site. The number of job cuts in the United States skyrocketed 218% during the month of January. According to Challenger, Gray, we already did this one. The Baltic Dry Index just hit 303. U.S. factory orders have now dropped for 14 months in a row. But hey, we're under 5% unemployment now. Unemployment is dropping. Because isn't that the correlation? Factory orders drop and they hire more people to build nothing. Of course that's what happens. Let's see. U.S. Restaurant Performance Index just fell to the lowest level we have seen since 2008. That's the first thing that gets cut off. When people start cutting back, they cut back on restaurants. In January, orders for Class 8 trucks, the big trucks that you see shipping stuff around the country on our highways, oh, it declined by 48% from a year ago at the same time. Rail traffic is also slowing down substantially. In Colorado, there are hundreds of train engines that are just sitting on the tracks with nothing to do. Corporate profit margins peaked during the third quarter of 2014 and have been declining steadily since then. This usually happens, as it says, when we are heading into a recession, or as we say, a depression. Junk bonds continue to crash. On Thursday, a major British news source publicly named 5 large European banks that are considered to be in very serious danger. Some of the largest banks in the world: Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse, Santander, Barclays, and RBS. We've done stories on Deutsche Bank and its derivatives. Let's see. Credit Suisse announced that it's going to eliminate 4,000 jobs. Royal Dutch Shell, they're eliminating 10,000 jobs. Caterpillar, 670. Oh, because they plan to hire more people because employment's going down. Johnson & Johnson just announced that it's slashing its workforce by 3,000. Yahoo has announced that it's getting rid of 15% of its total workforce. All over America, retail stores are shutting down at a staggering pace. Told you before about Walmart, 269, Kmart, a couple dozen, JCPenney, 47 more, Macy's, 36 and 2,500 employees. The Gap is closing 175 stores. Apostasy in the process of 84. The Finish Line, 150 stores. Sears has shut down about 600 stores over the past year or so, and sales continue to fall. Anyway, it just goes on and on. The take-home message from 9/11 is that it was the anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's very first protest. That's why they did Jade Helm, because they know they're going to hurt us so bad that we're going to protest. We must be the change that we wish to see in the world. This has to be a revolution of love, nonviolent revolution that will be met with violence. They will provocateur it, they will infiltrate and even start the violence so that we get blamed for it. These are all tactics that they've been doing forever. Seek the truth and bear witness to it. Jesus sees what's going on. There will be change. This will stop. This is a legal abortion. That's a child. That's a little girl. What was her choice? You can wait a few months and give her up for adoption. That is the option. And prayer and fasting can change the world. Without God, you're almost useless to us. This was produced at here in the underground studio. That's my website. There's one good website, Zero Hedge, Drudge, a couple more good websites. One thing you can do is tell people about the show. I'm on from 8 to 9 on Thursdays, channel 77. Friday, 1 to 2, channel 77. I'm also on early Friday morning, late Thursday night, midnight to 1 a.m. That's how you can contact me by email, or write a letter. And remember what my Sioux brothers say, Matakawe we seen, we are all related. And may God bless you and keep you, you and your family. So go out this week, wake someone up, get yourself educated, and educate others. And we'll see you next time.